Welcome, everybody, to the How She Met Her Husband and How You Can Too Summit. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a dating and relationship coach and founder of Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and also of Single in Stilettos. I am so excited because today we have a very special guest, Monique Head, and she's a feminine allure educator. And I know everybody's going, ooh, what is that? And she's going to tell you what that is. But before she does, I want to tell you a little bit about her and read her bio to you. So Monique Head works with marriage-minded women of faith. She teaches them how to use feminine allure to attract and communicate with the right man and use those same skills to improve your overall life. She works with women who have been through some really tough stuff and turn to God to help them out. But they're still a little rough around the edges and struggle with finding love because of it. And Monique, first of all, I love how you put that because it's so true. It's, we can all go through some tough stuff, and sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance from someone like you to help us through those things so we can get to the other side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a part of my story. And thank you for having me. I just want to acknowledge you for hosting this kind of interview summit masterclass series because it's really cool. I jumped on it. So I think that I just want to acknowledge you too, Suzanne, for offering this type of platform to hear every woman's stories so that other women can know that, hey, okay, if she did it, it's possible for me too, and not be like, well, that's easy for her because she's a feminine allure educator. But to know that we all have our junk, we all have our stories, and no one is exempt, and everything is possible is for every woman.
That is so true. And that's actually why I actually wanted to interview you about how you met your husband and got married. And I've met Monique's husband, and he's a wonderful man. And
thank you.
Not only
so charming,
he's lucky, but she's very lucky too. But so Monique, I would love for you to share your story about the path that you went through before you met your husband.
Ooh, girl, listen, my marriage right now is full of passion and harmony and peace. We're expecting our first child in April. And
yay,
I say that,
congratulations. And I have to say, because when we first jumped on this call, I was like, God, she's glowing. She looks beautiful.
Thank
you really do.
Isn't that pregnancy glow? Girl, I'm ready for it. I'll take it. Thank you. But yeah, so we have a really great and awesome marriage full of passion and peace and just connectedness. But it wasn't always this way, So where do I start? When I met him, well, let me tell you this. Back in 2008, however old I was, in my late 20s, I remember watching Steve Harvey on Oprah, and this is when he had come out with his book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. And when I saw him on Oprah, I was like, man, this man's about to blow up big time, because he was on Oprah and he was a comedian. You're familiar with Steve Harvey, right?
Oh my God. I think I'm one of his biggest fans. And of course I read his book, and I think he's amazing, and he makes me laugh, which is the best of all.
So I haven't read that book officially. I skimmed through it, but I remember him saying a lot of things. Because at that time there were just a lot of everyone in the audience was beautiful, and there were specifically a group of beautiful professional Black women, and they were single. And then there was another set of women. One woman had a list of things on her, of what she wanted in a man, a checklist, and it was 42 things. And I say that because I also created a list, and I had 108 things on my list.
And I 108 things?
I have 108 things. Look, I will pull it up. Is it in here? It is right here on my bookshelf. But I did that because the mentor at the time had given me a journal, and she mentioned that I should write what I wanted down. And I did, and I wanted to be very, very, very specific. So there were a lot of redundancies. But one of the things that Steve Harvey said that kind of frightened me a little bit was that he said that, a lot of women pass up a good man thinking that they can do better and thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. And next thing you know, she's 35 and she's still single, and her pool is a lot smaller. So at that time, I was in the early stages of dating a guy, and he was really good, really an amazing person. But yet there was still something missing for me. And maybe it was attraction. I knew it wasn't right, but he was such a good guy, a good friend. And I was afraid, what Steve Harvey had said really stuck with me. And I was like, well, am I passing up a good guy right now? Let me just go for this because it's a good thing right now. So I entered that relationship, and then I moved to St. Louis, Missouri for law school. And I finished that in 2012. And so I was in a relationship all throughout law school. And when the law school completed, I was 30 years old. So it was a threshold year for me. 30 is a threshold year for many women. We hope to be married and pop out a kid or two and maybe have some accomplishments under our belt. And what I noticed was that that relationship was coming to an end. It was like, okay, we're either going to move this thing forward or it has to be like, we have to be done with it. And I felt really uneasy because he was such a good man. And he was just a really good person. And I felt like something was wrong with me. Like, what is it about me that I can't be satisfied? Like, nothing is ever enough for me. And I wonder, like, am I just flawed, Mm-hmm. And I listened to Katy Perry's song. She has this song called Thinking of You. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
You have to listen to it. It's like, when I was in law school, I used to listen to her like playlists and whatnot. But in that song, it basically talks about comparison. Like, comparisons are easily done once you had a taste of perfection. And so I listening to that song, it reminded me of a gentleman from my past, mm-hmm. someone that I had felt really passionate about, but who wasn't good for me. And so I felt like that was missing in that relationship that I had while I was in law school. And so I would like listen to that song and I would bawl my eyes out. I would like cry because I was like, my gosh, you see these kind of love that's in a movie. And I know that it's all like for TV and movie, but there was a point in my life where I really felt that, like really felt so passionately about someone. And I wondered if it was possible for me to have it again, because at that time I remember people saying things like, well, when you have that first love and maybe he or she breaks your heart, like it's difficult. Like you don't feel that way about a person again. And I was like, that ain't true. I'm gonna get that. So I always had belief in me about what was possible. I was just settling. I was settling, to be honest with you.
In the second relationship or the first relationship?
No, both? In the second one, the one that I had when I was in school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, in the first relationship, I was just so enamored.
Did you think you were going to marry that man in the first relationship?
No, I didn't. But I probably would have if he acted right. But he loved women, so he was someone that I could see he was what I wanted because he was all good on paper. He spoke like 5 languages. He only wore white underwear. He could cook. His place was tidy. But he loved women and women loved him. And I was like, this is not going to work for me because I'm a Leo and I like to be number one and the only one. So I would have liked for it to happen. And I had did those things like, like kind of that desperate energy, just wanting to know why, like sort of pick me, but not really pick me. So I knew that I wanted it to be future, but I knew it was really a dead end story. And it had just taken me a long time to let go of this vision of what could have, like what our life could have been like, because he comes from a wealthy family as well. Mm-hmm. And being able to let that go. But I knew it was a dead end story, Suzanne. And that's the thing. Women know it's a dead end story. We know. And it's just about giving ourselves permission to sort of move through that and let go. And so I had come to a point where so at that time I was in a relationship. And, here's the thing. I had let that person know that I wanted to end the relationship. Like I wanted to date other people, but he wouldn't let me. And he said that he would change and do these things. And I was like, okay, well, we can work this out. This is a good man. Like, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. This type of loyalty and friendship and honesty. And when I graduated, I said, okay, I broke it off. And I met my husband at a networking event. One of my sorority sisters was like, hey, there's this thing called National Sales Network. So it was my first event. And I had just failed the bar exam. I learned that I had failed the bar exam. I was unemployed. And I say that because a lot of women are like, well, I need to get a job. I need to work on me. I need to do this. And I'm like, you don't have to be ready. You can be with someone and grow and build a life together. Because that has always been my standard. Like, can I meet someone that I can build a life with? So anyway, my intent in going to this event was that I would meet someone in the sales department that could sort of direct me to legal. So I was there really networking, but I was always open. And the thing is, to be honest with you, and if I'm being very honest, I was taken but looking, because at this time I was still in that relationship. It was long distance, but I knew that it wasn't right. And I was kind of like, we were kind of spreading apart, but I had never officially said, we're done. And I let that person know that I didn't want another person to come in between us for me to be like, okay, I'm breaking this off. And now there's another man. I didn't want that to be, but it kind of had come to that point, to be honest with you. So I met John and I met him at this event. And it was interesting because let him tell the stories. Like I was sending him attraction signals. That's something that I'll talk about. Like you got to send out the signals, give that man the green light to let him know that, you'll be receptive to his approach. So he was sort of sitting behind me, and I remember just kind of like doing a double take, and he won a book and a drawing. And I kind of noticed him, but I didn't think anything of it, to be honest with you. I was just like, oh, okay, nothing major. But there was a woman on the panel, and I had spoken to her because her vibe seemed really familiar to me. And I learned that she was also from Detroit. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And at the end, my husband, John, when I finished speaking with her, he kind of like was way across the room and made like a beeline all the way across the room. And so here's the thing. Because some women would tell you, because I remember, I think Dr. Pat Allen says this, like, you have this 6-second rule and you don't speak first. So he came up to me and I felt like he was kind of stalling. And so here's, let me just kind of break this down. Because I'm I'm 5'11", I'm a tall, statuesque person. I know that I have presence. And I had bought into a lie. And the lie that I bought into is that men are intimidated by me, right? Because I'm successful, I got it going on, I'm beautiful, I feel good about myself, I'm really confident. And when I walk into a room, people notice. And because of that, it's my obligation, this is the lie that I bought into, it's my obligation to put them at ease. So when he came up to me, I spoke first. And I thought that he was stalling. So I was like, oh, you won the book. And he was like, girl, he said that I stole his thunder. And that was me, like, oh, there you go, Monique, jumping the gun again. That was my thing, like making the first move, kind of like taking the lead, because I wanted to make it easy for men, to let them know that I'm just, a girl from around the way. I'm easygoing. You don't have to be intimidated. So he was like, yeah, I won the book. And I was like, oh, okay, just trying to small talk. So anyway, this woman comes over, that same woman that I was speaking with, and I think she was trying to hit on him. And then she realized, because he was a little bit younger than her. And so he was like, oh, you like her, don't you? I can tell you like her. And so John was like, yeah, I like her. As a matter of fact, I'm going to marry her. And in my head.
From first sight that he was going to marry you?
Well, that's what he said. Yeah, the vibes were good.
I love that.
But you know what? You know what I was thinking? In my head, I was like, man, these dudes will say anything. Like, whatever. I heard that before. But at the same time, I liked it. I liked hearing that. And I liked his sort of like gangsta bossiness. Like, I know what I want, you what I want, and I'm going for it. So I was like, okay, let me see what he's talking about. So he was like, yeah, I like her. And she was like, oh, okay. And then she kind of went on her way. So we just connected. He asked me for my information. Girl, I gave him my email address and not my phone number, because remember, I was in that relationship. But then at the time, remember, I was unemployed. I didn't have anything. So I was like, well, if he wants to take me out, I got to eat. Like, that was my thing. That was my rationale. I was like, I got to eat. He want to take me out.
Girls got to eat.
Girls got to eat. So then we went, he set a date for us to go to the symphony. That was a Thursday. We met on a Thursday. That Sunday, we went to the symphony, and we just had like a good conversation. And it was kind of on and off because, like I said, I was in that relationship and I was going back and forth to Michigan. It was towards the end of the year. And it was in December. I met him in September. And I would drive back and forth to Michigan from St. Louis and spend like 3 weeks there. And it was like the day after Christmas was when I officially broke it off with the gentleman that I was with. And that was really when a lot of obstacles started to begin. Like I said, I decided that I wanted to study for the bar again. I didn't have a place to live. I wasn't sure what I was doing with my life, because the person that I was with had shown himself. He had proven himself to be a good person. And yet it was like, what's wrong with you, Monique? My mom was telling me I'm messing up my life because this person has been really good to me. And I just felt lost. And I just felt really lost and wondered, like, could I really trust myself to make the right decision? And so let me tell you what happened. Because this is typically what happens where we women can go into self-sabotage. Well, I met this gentleman, great guy. He sounded all good. He was saying the right things. And then I started checking his phone because I had trust issues because of what I was doing, right? Because of what I was doing. And so I saw some pictures like of some women and stuff that I had asked him about. And it was just, how, what's the truth and what's not the truth. Like, I could perceive the energy and it wasn't light. So I was like, something's not really right about this. And I was like, okay, I don't need this in my life. I need to separate from this because I need to be studying to pass this test.
Right.
So, so what happened? So I ended up taking the test and not passing it. And I blamed him for it. And oh, let me just say this too. At that time, like, I was living one of my mentors, she was living in the capital city. And so she had a house in the city, and I was able to stay there while she went away for like the week. And she was allowing me to stay there. And I was on her granddaughter's daybed. So I just felt like, I felt shame. I felt isolation. I felt lost. Like, what the heck am I doing? I left this good man to be with this person who's lying to me about women in his phone, but yet I'm phone checking anyway. What's really going on? And it was just, it was just really up and down. I was unstable because I didn't really allow myself time to like grieve over that, even though I had broken it off. Like, you just kind of go from one thing to the next. And I was like, okay, I need to just sort of relax. So a few months later, I was confronted with, okay, am I going to stay in Missouri or am I going to go back to Michigan? And John invited me to come stay with him and live with him. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that, because at that time I'm like, I can't live with a man before marriage. That was a standard that I had set for myself. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was curious. I was like, this person, even though he wasn't 100% honest about what had happened before, neither was I. And we weren't in a relationship then anyway. It was kind of like, I'm trying to test the waters. You know how we women can do things that we do to self-sabotage. So I accepted the offer, and I moved in, and it was good. And then I just felt shame, and I felt isolation, and I gained weight, and because as a Christian woman, it's like, what am I really doing? And I felt that pressure, like that obligation, like, what is my mom going to say? What are people going to think? This and that. But I'll tell you this though, Suzanne, I stayed because, number one, I put out a down payment on a place, and I felt like God was telling me, like, this is where you need to be, because I had this very fight or flight mentality. My parents divorced at a young age, so I always had this sense of, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it for me. Like this sense of, I got to do it on my own. I need to know what's coming next, this sense of control. And so that was one reason. The second reason why I stayed was because we didn't have sex. So when I say no sex, I mean no rocking the mic, no mowing the lawn. You know what I mean? And so he was serious about me. And I don't even know how the topic of sex came up, but he already had decided early in the beginning. He was like, nah, we're not doing it. I feel a certain way about you. And I was like, okay, we'll see how long this can last. And it was something that I had done before. I had practiced celibacy before. And I wondered, I was like, well, have you ever been intimate with a woman? What's your story? But it was just that he felt a certain way about me and thought that I was special. And he was creating his vision. Like, when we have kids, we're going to say that mommy and daddy waited. So I was like, okay, I like that. Like, I liked his leadership. And that was something that I could yield to, because the women that I work with want a man who can handle a woman like them. And so for me, showing up as this woman who I wanted to be in control, but yet I was really controlling, it was good for me to come under that. Like, I respected him enough that I could submit, really, that I could surrender to. And so I really respected him and admired him for that. So I stayed. And again, that brought about its challenges, just making the adjustment, just coming to agreement. And then we had gotten engaged a year later. So that was 2013. We got engaged September 2014. We've been married a little over 2 years now. Like I said, we're expecting a first child.
Yay!
In April. And it's full of peace. So I feel like I'm missing something. So in order for me to get over that, I had to get help. Like I worked with a woman. I had got coaching. I read several books, because I had been studying this feminine allure part, like showing up differently in the world in a way that, is very different from men. But yet when it came for me to put it into practice, like when the rubber hits the road or something like that, whatever people say, like, it was difficult for me. And this wasn't something that I could just pray myself out of. Like, my ego was shot, and I felt like I could trust the decisions that I was making up until that point. But when the whole breakup, and I felt like the failure and the unemployment and all these things were happening at once, I didn't know where my life was taking me, Suzanne. I was like, I am lost. And I remember going to my pastor. He couldn't help me. Number one, he was a man. So I was like, this guy. Everyone was just like, just talk about it, honey. If y'all want to be together, just talk about it. Just pray about it. And I'm like, y'all so prolific. Thank you. Like, I felt like no one had anything of substance to share with me that was really insightful. And so what I found is that being in relationships is something that you really have to be groomed for. Like, if you don't have that modeled for you at a young age, of
Mm-hmm.
what it's like to like release, like to be selfless and to not someone that you can, what someone said, it's not the love of your life, but someone that you can love for a lifetime. Like learning how to love as an act and not an emotion was something that was new to me. And this man was teaching me how to do that just by his example and calling me out in a way through gentle love. And I was like, oh, feeling so exposed. And I knew that it was so good for me. And at the same time, I was scared because, I wasn't used to this because I was the woman who was used to taking the lead. And John is the man that I had prayed for. And I even share with him, I'm like, baby, you're the man of my dreams. And I don't know how to deal with that, because I was this woman who was getting that beta male. Like I was taking the lead. I was doing this. And in a way, the men that I had been with in the past, it was as though I was chipping away at their spirit or not allowing them to
Step
please
up.
me and to make me happy and just step up to the plate.
Yeah.
So I say all of that to say, girl, where am I at now within this story? It's just that it's taken a lot of growth. It's a practice. Like I said, our marriage is wonderful. My husband is tall, dark, and handsome. He's charming. He's everything that I ever wanted. And it's me that has to exist as love every single day. Every single day I have to show up and I have to choose to love and still work out the kinks because it's a process. It's definitely a process.
Yeah. And, Monique, I love that you shared that because number one, that's you being vulnerable. And I think it's really important for women to understand that just because you find the man and you get married doesn't mean, oh, and we lived happily ever after. It's actually, I think that's when the real work starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be harder. And I just want to point out a couple of things in your love story with John that I think are so important for women to really get and understand is, the part where you were unemployed, and then you moved in with him and you're a woman of faith and you started, worrying about what other people think. And I think a lot of women, and it's not just women, quite honestly, it's men too, but I find, you and I both work with women, so I see this a lot, is we tend to worry about what everybody else thinks over our own needs or what we think is the best decision for us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be a mistake. But the other thing that I noticed that you shared with the women is, and you and I have met in person, so I know you're a strong, independent woman and you're tall. You're so tall. So, I mean, ladies, I'm 5'2" and she's 5'11". So yeah, she's very tall.
And I like to wear heels and I wear heels on top of that,
Exactly. But I think that one of the things that you shared about John and where you kind of surrendered to him because he took the lead in that, no, we're not going to have sex. And I saw it in your face when you were telling the story, is that you actually relaxed into it. And, what I want to point out to the women as a strong, independent woman is you were able to relax into it and trust because John made you feel safe.
Yeah. And you know what? Thank you for that too. But I'll tell you, Suzanne, it wasn't easy because I tested him several times.
Oh, I'm sure you did, because strong, independent women do that.
But I tested him to see if his word was true. Because I was like, okay, if he's not having sex with me, he must be doing it with somebody else. I wonder if he's doing it with somebody else. That was a part of my skepticism too. That was like the hole in my heart, just to being this skeptic, mistrustful type woman. Right. And so I tested him, and his word is just so strong. And so because of his actions, because his words and his behavior were in alignment, and I could bear witness to that, I could see that, that was the thing that helped me to yield over time. It was like, okay, this dude is real. He's a good one. He's a keeper, But like I said, I tested him. I had concerns, I had fears, and it wasn't something that we shared too much anyway. I mean, even now with my communities, it's not something that I share. I have shared it before, but sometimes people don't believe it. But also I'm thinking about how can I share this story and use it to glorify God? Because there are a lot of women who say that they don't want to be, men are just interested in sex and that's all they want is sex. And it's not always true. He's maybe just interested in sexing you, but how are you showing up? Are you showing up in a way where he's categorizing you as that woman who's just a sex toy, or is he looking at you as a potential wife or potential, life partner? So this is where that feminine allure comes in, because it's all about how the woman shows up in her own life, that, men perceive her in a certain way. So hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, yeah, it's totally helpful. And just to draw this story back around to Steve Harvey, who you started off with,
Yeah.
is, in that movie, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, and in the book, is he talks about women need to have standards and boundaries. And that's
Hmm.
really, really important. And that's what you should live by. And don't just let a man do whatever he wants. If these aren't your standards and boundaries, then he's not respecting them, then he's the wrong man for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to add to that too by saying a woman doesn't have to be like, no, I'm not having sex with you. And whether she's Bible thumping or she's like, I'm not having sex, like, you ain't got to tell nobody nothing. You keep your commitments to yourself. Like, keep your personal standards personal. Because once we go into the, I'm not having sex with you, this and that, it's like, don't put yourself in a situation if you're going over his house at certain times of the night, like, part of it is common sense, but also it's like, okay, you want to make sure that you can keep your commitments. Because I know for me, I said that before and I was flaking out, like, oh, I don't want to have sex, I want to honor God with my body, I want us to slow down and get to know each other. I'm talking all of this stuff, but I'm not living it, so it was incongruent. And number one, so therefore I'm probably perceived as a flake, which means that he might think that, okay, if she's doing this with me, she's doing it with Tom, Dick, and Harry. And whether I was or not, shoot, I was so flaky, who knew? I couldn't even trust
Right.
myself to say that I'm not going to do this. So I kept that low. So I never brought that up to him, but I had brought it up to people in the past. And when I did commit, when I was in that other relationship, I had gotten what's called saved, right? So I wanted to honor God with my body, and I brought it up to him, and he was like, well, is there someone else? I'm like, no, I just, I created an invitation by saying, this is the journey that I'm on, and I want to invite you. I want to put you in choice. Like, I would like for you to participate in this with me, but if you don't, it's totally cool too. So it's about putting them in choice, and
Yes.
not creating that obligation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So, Monique, the last question I want to ask you is, you know, are there maybe two or three things that you wish you knew back then, that you would like to share with the ladies that are possibly in that same type of situation now, and they just need some help that they can turn their love life around and meet their husband?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to share, number one, just be mindful of this kind of what I call chameleon energy. Meaning that, when you get with someone new, you meet someone, you start adopting their behaviors and foods that they eat. And so you feel like you're losing yourself along the way. So in order to learn how to love without losing yourself, how can you find ways to what I call water your garden? It's really self-care. So I'm like, define how you want to be and how you want to show up in a relationship with a man, and keep your commitments to yourself. Keep that personal, but keep it to yourself too, because when we don't keep our commitments, it cheapens us. So whatever that looks like for you, for me, it was, the foods that I ate, or the way that I spoke, like adopting his language. Girl, I started cursing for a little bit, and I was like, this ain't me. That kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm so susceptible. I'm highly impressionable. So, but I know that about myself. So be careful just be cautious and have that sense of awareness, like not to lose yourself along the way. So what can you do to practice honoring yourself? What can you do to keep a calm, feminine spirit? What can you do, again, to show love to yourself so that you teach people how to treat you? So that's number one. The second thing that I would be mindful of, and we kind of spoke about this too, is that polarity, the masculine and the feminine. So it's what I call the masculine as this executive energy, which is all about this results orientation. And then the feminine allure, which is all about the experience. Remember, for me, it was all about, I had bought into this lie. And that was that I had to, that men were intimidated by me because of a lot of stuff, success, height primarily. But, and feeling that I just had to really make it easy for them, like calling them out, asking them like, hey, what you doing? I'm in your neighborhood. What's up? What do you want to do? You want to go out for eat? Oh, you don't have money? Don't worry, I got you. Like that kind of thing. And I know someone might be like, I would never do that. And, that was in my 20s, but it happens, So I say that to say, what I wish I would have known is that I was robbing men of the pleasure of getting to know me, and of the pleasure of making me happy, and really just pleasure and purpose in their own lives. So
Mm-hmm.
if I had been a better receiver, if I was able to lean back and say, you know what, I got something to contribute, which I knew that I did, but I wanted them to see that too. I just wanted them to make the first step to make the approach easy. And then things were typically smooth sailing. So that would be the second thing, is just understanding that, that polarity, understanding that men do like slow things down, allow the man the pleasure of getting to know you, the pleasure of making you happy, learning to receive that. And then the third thing that I wish I would have known is just really the power of my own influence. Like my ability right now to see my husband, to define his good, to activate or like awaken this masculinity within him, because in turn, my feminine nature is magnified, it's preserved, it's protected, it's loved. And if I could see that in him first and not be like, well, he has to do this first and then I'm going to do it. It's mirroring. It goes back to that chameleon thing. It's like mirroring their energy, where I'm afraid to say something because I'm afraid how he might respond, or if he might think. But you know, even like in the dating phase, when I saw him, I was judging like, oh, is that what he gonna wear? Is that the food that you gonna eat? Oh, let me tell you a story real quickly, because I always share this story. But even judging like the foods that he would eat, because he has a very simple palate, an easy to please palate. That's the way we say it. It's an easy to please, so that's a reframe. But in my mind, I was like, this guy's so basic. You know, he just wants chicken wings and pizza. And me, you know, as a first, my family's Jamaican. I'm like, I want someone of that diaspora, someone who's cultured. And when we have children, I want them to be like cultured and worldly, you know, but projecting into the future about making plans. And here I am in the moment having a meal, and I'm forfeiting that connection that we could have. So being able to see him in that moment, receive him, like see his good, those are the things that create emotional bonds and emotional attachment in a way that goes beyond looks. Because you don't have to be the prettiest woman, but you do have to know how to create that, like be seen and create that attachment, those attraction triggers, send out those signals. Because men are committing to the women who are able to receive their gifts. And like, if he feels good about himself when he's with you, you got it in the bag, girl. So yeah. That's what I help women with. And those are the things that I continue to practice, but I wish I would have known even a little bit earlier, like really mastering that, like I'm doing now.
Oh my God, that was like a gold mine of information, not only with your beautiful love story with John, but those tips that you gave at the end really are, ladies, you should write all of those down. In fact, I suggest you rewind this video and you write those down, because honestly, everything that Monique said is gold. It's so true. And I know there's a lot of strong independent women on this summit. So I know this will help them. So Monique, I know you have a free gift for the ladies. So can you tell them about it?
Yeah, so I have a video training series. It's 3 parts. The video training series is called Be the Woman Who Gets Everything That She Wants, Especially from Men. And so within that, it's very practical information. But what I do is that there are 10 areas of a woman's life that she needs to have in order for her to be that woman, to get everything that she wants. And so I go through that, and we go through practical ways that you can begin to step up in those areas and really enhance them, shift some things. And it's just really a step-by-step teaching that I do. You learn more about me and my story, but also you'll learn how you can blossom into the best version of yourself in order to attract the right man that is for you, because that's what you want. You want the right man so that you can have that meaningful, that purposeful relationship, because the women that I work with just don't want to get married. They want to move forward in purpose. And once they find that one, they'll feel like, yeah, they're purposeful. Like God is really orchestrating the thing that they want to do in this life and in this work. So if that's something that interests you, Suzanne has the link there, and you can find me on the back end.
Yeah. So ladies, if you'd like Monique's amazing free gift, all you have to do is click on the link on this page and go get her free gift.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I feel like I need to breathe and slow down, because I get so excited, Suzanne, about these things, and I start talking really, 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 really fast because I'm thinking fast, and I want to let everyone know. So I'm just taking a breather. This has been wonderful, and I always appreciate and just enjoy you. So thank you.
Oh, well, Monique, you truly do have a beautiful story with John, and ladies, like I said, he's an amazing man, and we are all so happy for you guys because you're pregnant, and I know you're going to have the most beautiful baby.
Thank you so much.